Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornblut, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
We will do some things differently, though, than we've done in the past. We got to be a faster, tougher team. We all know that. And hopefully we can, as I said, put a team out there that when the game's over, our fans can say, man, I like our team.
Obviously, it's a big game. It's Texas A&M. They're coming to our place. Our main focus is trying to take care of home and get another win in the SEC.
Gamecock coaches talking. We're listening, and you'll hear them tonight here on Sports Talk. Steve Spurrier, Dawn Staley, Hall of Fame coaches both. One, number one in the country right now. One has been number one before, wants to get back there. Time will tell if Spurrier is able to do it. But right now, he is a new man. He seems to be re-energized, re-enthused about everything about his football program. He's out working, making visits. He made 2 in-home visits. In fact, he's making one in about 8 minutes with Corey Helms. Made one a little while ago with Trey DeRuin. So he's out and about and doing what he has to do as a head football coach to make sure commitments hold and still trying to bring in 1 or 2 more to close out the class. Dawn Staley's going to be busy tonight. 53 minutes. Her team, number 1 in the country, tips off against number 10 Texas A&M at Colonial Life Arena. They were hoping to get a sellout over there. They had about 12,000 tickets sold. If they have a big walk-up pro, they might reach that ultimate goal of filling up the arena. Now, the Kentucky men's game was sold out, and I think they had pretty close to a full house. I did not see many empty seats in the arena on Saturday. K-Mac is among those over at the CLA. We'll bring him in just a little bit. Hope you had a great weekend. 800-956-7266 coming up. We'll hear from Spurrier. We will also review the very busy weekend in recruiting for you. We'll also hear from USC's Frank Martin, who talked with the media today. But Spurrier, he was in a great mood on Saturday Pro and went on and on and on after our microphones were turned off, talking about various and sundry things of interest to him.
It doesn't surprise me. I told you guys when he was moaning and groaning, I said, wait till when it turns, the calendar turns, he'll be refreshed. He's ready to go. All football coaches are like that. The world is about to end if something goes wrong at the end of the season. Then the recruiting season comes, and this transformation comes up, and I'm the happiest guy in the world, like they've been sniffing laughing gas. But it doesn't surprise me. I think probably, in my opinion, when people talk about making changes in a program, yes, the attitude maybe needs to change a little bit. But I think for the most part, if what you've done so far has worked, why are you changing? Now, I will say this. It will be interesting to see, and both of us talked about this before off the air many times, if suddenly in spring practice we don't see more hitting, which has been suggested for years.
The Patriots arrived in Arizona today, bit of a scare on their flight as they were heading into Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport. They discovered that the tires on their plane had been deflated by several pounds.
And then Belichick just blew him up with his hot air.
Of course, just kidding. All right, it is Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, downtown Columbia, Main Street, the Barringer Building. Did you realize, I didn't know this until I read this in the paper, that this building, the Barringer Building on Main Street in downtown Columbia, was South Carolina's first skyscraper.
I knew it was the oldest. Oldest in Columbia. I didn't know it was the States.
First in South Carolina. 12. I don't know what defines a skyscraper, how many floors, but this is what, a 12-story building? I was about to say the sky must have elevated since the last time. Changed a bit, but that's okay. Great to be a part of history. 800-956-7266, the phone number. Email talkback at sportstalksc.com. On Twitter. Sign up and join us with all our fun and information on Twitter at SportsTalkSC. The website, check it out often, sportstalksc.com. It's a free site for you. And also on Facebook, Sports Talk Radio Network is where you can like us there. 800-956-7266. Your thoughts about the weekend. Clemson pulls one out of the fire against Wake Forest. Big win for the Tigers. Gets them back to 3-4 in the ACC with a chance to get to 500 when they play at NC State on Wednesday. We'll hear from Brad Brownell tomorrow night. But nice win for the Tigers. Ugly basketball game. Wake Forest had the lead, couldn't hold on. They've just had a year under Danny Manning where they can't hold on to leads late in games. Lost another one. And Josh Smith, biggest basket of his career, a putback with less than a second to play. The Tigers pulled that one out. So good win for them. South Carolina, they hit a three-pointer. Thornwell did with 4:32 to play in the first half and put the Gamecocks up a point. The arena was loud and behind the Gamecocks, and they didn't score for over 9 minutes into the second half, including the rest of the first half. And the second half didn't score a basket for over 9 minutes. By then, Kentucky built a double-digit lead, and they were home free for the most part. South Carolina did play an aggressive physical game. Frank Martin liked that. They just couldn't shoot. They made only 4 baskets in the second half of that game and shot under 23%. You're not going to beat, even though they had more rebounds, they had more offensive rebounds. They didn't allow Kentucky to get offensive rebounds. They could not shoot. They had 9 blocks, Kentucky did, and the Gamecocks had a fair number of turnovers. So still, if you're not making shots, you can do the other things well, you're not going to win a basketball game. No, and that's what amazed me. You shoot 22% against Kentucky, and you only lose by 15. I say only because normally that means a 40-point blowout if you're shooting that badly. But, Corn, as I said before, the game when we sat here on Friday, I told you Kentucky does not like to play the zone. You could tell they didn't have block-out responsibilities. Didn't play it much. They didn't know how much. Yeah, they didn't know how to rebound out of the zone. I think Calipari saw early on, wait a minute, let me get him out of this thing because we don't play well playing the zone. But if you're going to play South Carolina, I mean, that's really the ideal defense. Then again, if you're Kentucky with all that length and the depth they have coming off their bench, they take a 6'10" guy out, they put a 7-footer in, they take him out, put a 6'11" guy in. The one thing all those cats can do is block shots. And South Carolina had a mindset to be aggressive and take it to the rim, and they got rejected more often than not, or their shots were altered and affected around the rim. I will say this also, and we'll use a football analogy here, and we'll just use, for example, a pass rusher. Suddenly you see a quarterback hesitant, and the pass rusher is nowhere in sight because he sees ghosts because he's hit a couple of times. South Carolina a few times, and I want to say, Corn, around 6 or 7 times I could remember watching the game. There was no Kentucky guy underneath the basket, yet they hesitated because here's the ghost of the men swatting shots down. So sometimes just the specter of the block shot can alter shots on guys when it's in their head that they've got tree trunks standing in the lane. All right, coming up, we're going to hear from Steve Spurrier. He talked to the Gamecock fans at halftime, and he threw I'm not going to say it was a jab. I'm going to say it was more of a crossing blow, a glancing blow at Clemson at the very end of his remarks to the fans when he said, circle November 28th on your calendar. Of course, Tiger fans, when that was put on our Twitter timeline, they erupted, had a little fun with that. Like Is that when he's announcing his retirement, et cetera, et cetera? But yeah, he said circle November 28th. He said something along the lines of, I think that will be when you'll be proud of your football program again. But he got out there in front of the fans and said, we were not a real good team this past year. We didn't accomplish our goals. We did get the bowl win, 4 straight bowl wins. They had the trophy out there. He did recognize senior players, et cetera, and some others. And then he met with the media in the back of the arena for a long time, and we'll bring that to you coming up at the bottom of the hour. Frank Martin as well later on in the program tonight. Right now, let's go over to Colonial Life Arena. Kevin McCrary has set up shop there. He's going to watch the top-ranked USC women take on Texas A&M. And as much as people are interested in what happens on the court, Mac, I think people are just as interested as what happens in the seats in terms of attendance and talking about a sellout crowd and filling the place up. Is it heading in that direction?
Yeah, it's funny. Normally, when I cover a 7 o'clock game, I might stick around the studio for a couple of segments and make my way over, but I'm glad I left a little bit before the show. I made my way here. It's strange. A lot of traffic getting into Colonial Life Arena. A lot of the garage is full and people looking for parking. 12,000 tickets already been sold. They're expecting a walk-up crowd. They were hoping to sell it out. They are going to need, of course, a pretty big walk-up crowd to do that. But there should be, close to 15,000, 16,000 at least in here tonight to watch the Lady Gamecocks, or just the Gamecocks. You're right. My bad.
I want to hear it. What do you do when you call them the Lady Gamecocks? What do I do?
But, somebody next to me here in the corridor, if I make my way to the seat, just elbowed me. So I think we're good. Okay, good. They did announce attendance for the men's game on Saturday at 18,000. So is that not what is the place seats 18,000 even, right? Or
yes.
It's 18,000 even.
And also counting the suites, I think. I'm not sure.
So, I mean, that's a full house. That's the
yeah. Oh, yeah. They didn't have any tickets for that one. So
right.
Definitely a full house.
But I mean,
and that's the goal for Dawn Staley. She wants to have a full house for a matchup with her team, and she's gotten very close. I mean, they had 16,000 and 17,000 when there were no students here, which was just incredible. And we're still, 45 minutes or so away from tip, right at 40 minutes, I guess. And, there's a line of people to get in here, lines all throughout the corridor, a lot of people. They definitely built a buzz around the basketball team, and everybody loves a winner, and they've jumped forward here with what Dawn Staley has.
Well, this Texas A&M game will be a test. Texas A&M 16-4, 4-2 in the SEC, and like South Carolina, they typically have good inside players and can be a physical basketball team. South Carolina's never beaten Texas A&M. The Aggies lead the all-time series 3-0. So this should be a pretty good matchup, though South Carolina has been blowing teams out by a huge margin. This could be a much tighter, kind of down-to-the-wire game.
Yeah, and they've had some of those games, too. I think they've had a nice balance of, those blowout games, but a few games where they were tested at Duke. Kentucky gave them a test here a few weeks ago. Syracuse in the Bahamas in an early season game gave them a little bit of a test. So that's important as they get through their schedule here. They have 3 games this week, Alabama here Thursday night, and then add a pretty good Ole Miss team. UConn's looming in the next week, Georgia. They have some really good games coming up, and they're going to find out. We know they're good. We know they're really good, but just how good they are. Is this a team that is going to be the team to beat? That's going to be answered here in the next couple of weeks.
All right, K-Mac, we'll catch up with you in a little bit. Of course, USC's been off a week. Last outing, they beat Florida on the road by 35. Outing before that, they won at Missouri by 11. They are outscoring teams at this point by 30, right at 30 points per game.
And, of course, Dawn Staley always has a bone to pick with Texas A&M.
Yeah.
I'll just leave that.
I'm sure she does. 800-956-7266. What do you think? We'll be back. 800-956-7266, the number. Some important news items for you. First of all, Travis Blanks, Clemson's star-crossed defensive back, injured again. Going to miss spring practice for the second straight year, recovers from surgery to repair a torn ACL. Re-injured the knee during one of the final practices in Orlando before the bowl game. Had the surgery January 16th, hopes to return in time for the beginning of fall practice. He missed all of last year after suffering a torn ACL in the 11th game of the season. So that's not good news. You hate to hear that for that young man. Boy, for any athlete who has to go through an ACL once and then, you're over it, you're healthy to some degree, you're getting ready, and then it happens again. I just can't imagine how tough that is inside to deal with. When Jerry Brown resigned as the coach at Spring Valley, it not only impacted that high school team, it also impacted the Shrine Bowl team because he was the head coach of the Shrine Bowl. Mm-hmm. Well, because he stepped down at Spring Valley, he loses the job as the Shrine Bowl head coach. Today they announced that Berea's Wayne Green will be the head coach for the Sandlappers this December at Wofford College. And he's in his second stint at Berea. He was an assistant on the Shrine Bowl staff in 2001. Baseball America's preseason, and South Carolina checks in at number 13. Clemson checks in at number 24. Vanderbilt, number 1, followed by LSU, Houston, Virginia, and Texas Tech. Then it is Florida, TCU, Oklahoma State, Miami, and Texas. UCLA's number 11, followed by Louisville, then the Gamecocks, Mississippi State, Rice. Then it's Maryland, North Carolina, Arizona State, Kennesaw State, and Oregon. Florida State's 21, followed by Central Florida, Cal State Fullerton, Clemson, and Liberty. Jim Toman's team, preseason number 25. Interesting to see Liberty, preseason number 25. Kennesaw State, preseason number 19. And those two are kind of Johnny-come-latelys to the national scene in terms of the rankings. So smaller schools, smaller programs, but getting it done. Kennesaw State made a nice run in the postseason last year, I think it was. And, of course, we all know what Liberty's been doing with Jim Toman over there. So, and what else do we have for you? The player of the week in the Atlantic Sun is none other than USC Upstate's Ty Green. Third time he's won that honor. He only averaged 27.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 3 steals last week as Upstate went 1-1, losing to Florida Gulf Coast and beating Stetson. And USC has announced that its basketball Legends Weekend will be February 20th and 21st in Columbia. The Gamecocks will play host to Texas A&M at noon on that Saturday, and they'll have a number of events surrounding all of that for the weekend as they welcome back former Gamecock basketball players to Columbia. And, one thing I'd like to see them do with that is allow a little more time for the introductions instead of putting them in groups and introducing them by decades. Leave a little more time to introduce them individually.
You want a 4-hour game?
Yeah, we had our little halftime show.
Monday edition of Sports Talk from downtown Columbia Main Streets. Sports Talk show of Main Street, South Carolina. Good to have you with us. Phil Kornblut, the Professor Tom Hayes, K-Max over at the Colonial Life Arena for the women's game. And we have the state man, Graham Polk, behind the bulletproof glass. We'll take more phone calls a little bit later on in the program. In just a moment, Steve Spurrier. Then a recruiting recap from the weekend. Then another update from K-Mac. Frank Martin in the second hour, and we'll work phone calls as well then. Now, Steve Spurrier, for the second time this basketball season, held I want to say not an impromptu press conference because it was planned, but it was sort of a gaggle with reporters after he spoke to Gamecock fans in the arena for about 5 minutes, as he typically does during the biggest recruiting weekend of January. He tries to tie that in with the best basketball game if possible. And so after doing that, he retired to the back part of the arena, and we all kind of followed along with him until he finally stopped.
That word.
Oh, retired. Yeah, should not have used the word retired. Anyway, he went to the back part of the arena, and we all followed along. And here is Spurrier talking to us during halftime Saturday. And, of course, he was talking first about being out on the floor a little earlier and talking to Gamecock fans.
Yeah, we had our little halftime show. We try to recognize and celebrate, our achievements from the previous year. Didn't have that much, but again, proud of our team for fighting back. When we were 4-5 there, man, it looked like we were heading for losing season and not much of a year at all. And somehow or another, we turned it around, won 3 of the last 4, won the bowl game. And as we all know nowadays, when you win your bowl game, you got something to sort of think about for 7 or 8 months, to the next game. So we think we'll have an excellent recruiting class. And, 4 years from now, we'll find out if they're real good or not. But we got a chance to sign at least 30 players this year. So hopefully they will turn out.
So Steve, how excited are you to get on with spring practice?
Well, we're still recruiting. We're not in spring practice yet. February 4th is the final day. So a lot can happen in the next 10, 11 days, as we know. So as coaches, you just keep calling them and keep loving them up and tell them how much you need them and all that kind of stuff. So that's what we're doing right now. We are attending some 6 a.m. workouts. We will do some things differently, though, than we've done in the past. We got to be a faster, tougher team. We all know that. And hopefully we can, as I said, put a team out there that when the game's over, our fans can say, man, I like our team, proud of our team. Obviously, we couldn't say that at times last year. But we are proud that they bounced back and turned a very disappointing year into a winner. 7-6 is a winner. Not a big winner, but it is a winner.
How much this kind of environment help you today?
Well, I think so. I think all the players up there, the recruits, can see how important sports is here. And again, I mentioned Dawn Staley. I mean, she brought that team from nowhere. I used to sit up here in the stands. You guys were here too, with 200 people. And when I saw 17,000 plus for the Kentucky girls game last week, I said, man, anything's possible. And we need to expand our goals around here in football. Baseball's won a national championship. Our girls have won the SEC first time ever last year. And now they're on pace to do that and go for the national championship. If you can win in the other sport, you can win in football, volleyball, soccer. You can win in all of them because facilities are here. We just got to do a good job recruiting and sell everything that's here. So that's what we're trying to do.
Are you talking with John Hoke about coming on board in some form or fashion?
I will announce whatever different things we're going to do after recruiting's over with. Right now we're concentrating on recruiting. I've said many a time that we're not getting rid of any coaches, but we could add one. There's ways to add coaches. I think Alabama's got about 16 or 17 down there. We don't quite have that many. But if we can do something to strengthen our team, obviously we have to do that. But our coaches do a good job. They were here when we went 11-2, number 4 in the nation, same staff. So we got good coaches.
Would you say Hoke is a possibility, though? There was a report that you're talking
I'm not getting into there's been a whole bunch of people call and say, Coach, I can help you. And obviously we struggled on defense. We know that. But we struggle in some other areas also. But when the time's right, we'll talk about all that, okay?
Steve, when recruits ask, what do you tell them about your future?
About my future? We're talking about the next 4 years in a little toast now. That hopefully we can do something big with this recruiting class and the guys that are here. Future, did Will Muschamp tell his guys I'll be here when you finish? He tried. Nobody knows the future of coaching. I hope to be here 4 or 5 more years, but gosh, we all know anything can change.
What do you think about around the SEC with Chavis going to A&M, Kevin Steele taking over down at LSU defensively?
Well, there's a big demand for defensive coaches. I've learned that. Every NFL job has gone to a defensive coach. Us offensive boys don't have a chance hardly anymore. I'm glad I got a head job way back, I guess. But, everybody's hiring defensive coaches. It's really interesting. But anyway, in around the SEC, everybody's hiring defensive coordinators. So that seems to be the big news. But anyway, we got a good staff, and if at times we can strengthen it somehow, then I'll do that.
Do you feel any pressure from the fans or from the boosters to make changes for the sake of making changes?
Not from the boosters or the fans. I don't feel any. But obviously, the way we perform, we got to do some things different. Now, that's common sense. Common sense says if you do the same thing over and over again and expect different results, then you're not too smart. So we'll do some things differently, and we'll let you know later on that stuff. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming out, men and women. Thanks for coming out today.
You threw a little shot out there at Clemson.
Yeah, I just want. Yeah, we always need to remind each other that game, and remind our fans. We didn't play worth the flip over there last year. We had some players. I had one of the players on our team said, "Coach, we got guys don't even care." I said, "I know. I watched it." So we can't perform like that. We can't perform like that ever again, hopefully. And we'll have some new players out there and show more effort and act like we care a little bit more.
For a team that
I don't know. But you saw our bench. You saw some guys over there. But anyway, you saw the performance. Yeah, we gotta play better than that. But it's history, and not talking individuals, but. We can't play like that. We can't be number 92 in the nation in defense and Clemson number 1, expect to go in their house and beat them. So we need to play better. We need to come in a little higher ranked than what we were this year. But then again, was the talent, what was it? But we got to take responsibility. I got all the responsibility to start with as coach. I'm the head coach. I'm responsible for offense, defense, and special teams. And our special team, we're bottom of the league in returning punts and kickoffs too. So not just defense. We got some other areas of concern that we need to get better at.
Any early reports on Connor Mitch in the fall workouts?
Connor Mitch in the fall workouts. Connor Mitch, Scarnecchia, Michael Scarnecchia, and Perry Orth. They were over there in the workout room when I was on the treadmill a couple hours ago. So I didn't see Connor Mitch, though. Maybe he'll come in later. I don't know. He's up there. But I saw the other two. They were in there doing a little extra work. So Saturday morning. So tell it like it is, right, Rick? 2 out of 3 were there. Yeah. We got a lot of guys that like to come in and do a little extra.
Is there any possibility of a summertime quarterback transfer for you? Anybody that you might possibly pick up?
No, not that we know of. Not at this time.
All right, Steve Spurrier, from his gathering on Saturday, what did you take from that, Pro?
Well, first of all, when he mentioned the date, just talk to the fans, that reminded me of the first basketball game that Jim Tressel was at. And he said the same thing. And on so-and-so, and he mentioned the date when they played Michigan. You'll be proud of this football team. Yeah. I wasn't surprised by what he talked about some of the changes he needs to make. Because as we said, I go back to old Lou Holtzism. Things are never as bad as you think they are. Things are not as good as they are. South Carolina plays, let's say, if they play smart football in the last 8 minutes of 3 football games, they would be 10-3, not where they were at 7-6. I mean, they blew games. Missouri, Kentucky, and what was that? Tennessee. Those are 3 games that easily could have turned around if they'd have played a little bit better in the last 8 minutes of those football games.
Recruiting coming right up. All right, let's give you the recruiting recap. If you've been following along all weekend long through today, then none of this will come as a surprise to you. But if you haven't been, then we're going to recap for you what went on over the weekend. USC gets offensive lineman Corey Helms, 6'4", 305, to transfer from Wake Forest out of Alpharetta, Georgia. Made his official visit over the weekend. Decided once he got back home, USC was it. Mississippi State, Texas A&M, Penn State were also after him. We'll have him on the program tomorrow night. He was going to be with us tonight, but Steve Spurrier is in the home with him right now, so it was not going to work out tonight. He hopes to get some kind of NCAA relief because the main reason he's transferring is to be closer to his home where he has a sick grandmother, and he's hoping that through an appeal he might get eligibility this coming season. He's not really counting on it, but they will make that appeal effort. Defensive end Arden Key of Atlanta, twice a USC commitment, made his official over the weekend, and of course he'd seen it pretty much before, so nothing real new there, except he has some questions answered by Steve Spurrier, and his questions were about the defensive coaches, and Key said afterwards all the coaches he was told are staying. They're just going to add coaches. He said that they said none of their coaches are leaving, so he thinks adding coaches is a good thing. Plus he sees a chance for immediate playing time because he said they need a pass rusher, and that's what he does. He's also been to LSU and Miami. He'll go to Auburn this coming weekend, then announce a week from tonight on Next Level on Fox Sports South. USC commitment offensive lineman Christian Pelage was in over the weekend, enjoyed everything, and I think it still looks pretty solid for him with the Gamecocks, though publicly he's saying he's still deciding between the Gamecocks and Florida. But I think that South Carolina remains in a very strong position with him, as they do with offensive lineman Trey DeRuin of Lilburn, Georgia. He visited over the weekend, did not commit, but really enjoyed his visit, has the Gamecocks out in front by a big margin right now. Spurrier was in his home this afternoon, and he continues to favor the Gamecocks pretty heavily. He'll go to Kansas State on Wednesday and Florida this coming weekend. USC commitment defensive end Quandeski Whitlow, Opelika, Alabama, made his official over the weekend, reaffirmed his commitment, said it's over. He's not going to visit Florida this weekend. He is 100% firm with South Carolina. Commitment defensive back Damon Arnett, Fort Lauderdale, visited USC officially over the weekend, remains committed. He's also been to Michigan. He goes to Ohio State this coming weekend before finalizing his decision. Defensive back Rashad Fenton of Miami was at USC over the weekend, remains open on his decision, picked up an offer from Miami over the weekend. He's also been to Illinois and Florida. He is scheduled to visit Auburn this coming weekend, though Miami is trying to get him in. USC missed on offensive lineman Sam Madden of Barnegat, New Jersey, the former Wisconsin commit. He visited Georgia over the weekend, committed, and shut down his recruiting at that point. For USC commitment, running back Joe Blue of Dillon made a visit to Newberry over the weekend. Shrine Bowl receiver Arion Hayes of Dillon and offensive lineman Shaq Crouch of Johnsonville made official visits to South Carolina State over the weekend. Burns receiver Tavin Richardson is just getting back from Kentucky. He was there Saturday through today. He's also been to Nebraska and Central Florida. Plans to announce his decision Friday, probably going to be Kentucky. PC picked up a commitment from linebacker Logan Petty of St. Augustine, Florida. He was all-state down there. Safety Ryan Davis of AC Flora committed to Liberty. Defensive back Dominique Lemon of Blythewood has been committed to Wofford. Defensive end Rasul Clemens of South Aiken committed to Ole Miss over the weekend at the conclusion of his official visit. In a surprise, junior defensive back James Valdez of Lake Marion announced a commitment to NC State, regarded as one of the top prospects in South Carolina for next season. He also holds offers from USC, Tennessee, North Carolina, Wake Forest, and SC State. Clemson has shown interest but been offered. Shrine Bowl quarterback Marquane Goodman of West Florence committed to South Carolina State over the weekend on his official visit. He'd been committed to North Carolina Central. The Bulldogs also picked up a commitment from wide receiver Canyon Tuttle of Charlotte. That's the son of former Clemson All-American receiver Perry Tuttle. Shrine Bowl defensive lineman Paul McGyver, Batesburg-Leesville, committed to State Sunday, but he will visit Georgia Military on Wednesday. AC Flora receiver and defensive back Denzel Johnson made an official visit to state over the weekend. He was at Clemson the previous weekend, had planned to commit to the Tigers, but they backed off because of some academic concerns that he still has to address. He's also been to Towson, is scheduled for NC State this coming weekend. Wide receiver Kevin Eichelberger of Hillcrest and wide receiver Darian Patterson of Wade Hampton committed to Union College in Kentucky. A couple of more notes coming up. All right, wrap up recruiting with more commitments over the weekend. Room linebacker Bavier Jackson committed to Limestone. Northwestern defensive lineman Chris Bauer. And former Clemson receiver DeMar Kitts offered by Cincinnati today. He's still on the market looking for some place to go. Though I thought I saw where he was headed to a junior college, but apparently still getting some offers from major schools. There you go with recruiting, and don't forget to follow along on recruiting. Follow the bouncing ball on our website, sportstalksc.com. All right. Oh, by the way, on Twitter, hashtag ST Recruiting takes you to all the stories via Twitter. All right. To the phones, we jump quickly, and you can't do that to me right now. Can't do that to me right now. I mean, you got to do that to me right now. All right. We take him in line, take him in order. He's been patient. He's paid the price. We welcome in the de facto mayor of the city of Charleston, the bad boy by the bay, the ninja of the night, the pontiff of the port city, the queen of the cowboy crybabies, and Jerry Jones' personal plastic surgeon. Personal plastic surgeon. That's why he looks like the Joker. It's Joker Rome.
Hey, Phil.
You pulled Jerry's face a little bit too tight on that last stitch, Jerome. You should have eased up just a little bit.
Deflated it a little bit.
Yeah, you should have deflated his face just a little bit.
Hey, Phil. Hey, Tom. When Tom Buckkicks got up in front of the media and gave that the who me look, was his face pulled tight enough?
Well, Jerome, when I saw his face and the way he was marking his words, I hate to say this, but my mind immediately said guilty.
You know, he can run, but he can't hide. Ted Wells, they got a suspect. There's somebody inside that locker room. They got a suspect. Ted Wells is going to get his man, and his man's going to be Tommy Buckkicks. And by the way, that new Taj Mahal they're building for the Falcons, how much is that thing going to cost? And who's paying for that?
Well, I'll tell you, like they said in New Orleans years ago, when they opened the Superdome, the mayor at that time, I don't remember what his name was, but he said, well, we won't see it paid for in our lifetime.
What's that thing going to cost?
I really don't know. I have no idea. Because every time there's cost overruns, you never know until
But
the
Art
thing
Blanks
built.
is picking up
He's
a good bit of it, right?
up about, I don't know, about 70% of the tab. I mean, this guy is so, Home Depot.
Jerome, do you want to chip in? You want to write Mr. Blank a check? Send him a blank check to Mr. Blank?
Oh, very, very funny, Mr. Hands of Stone.
I don't have hands of stone. Why do I have hands of stone?
I know who does. I know who does. Number 86. Who?
Oh.
Packers?
See, that's just not nice. That's just not. That's a South Carolinian, Jerome. You're barking at the wrong guy. All right, and God will get you for that. And that's why the Cowboys, Mr. didn't complete the catch to the ground, happened to the Cowboys, and it was true the very end.
Live from Columbia, this is Sports Talk on the South Carolina Radio Network. Be a part of tonight's show. Call us at 800-956-7266 or email talkback@sportstalksc.com. Now, here are your hosts for Sports Talk, Phil Kornbluth, Kevin McCrary, and Tom Hayes.
Okay, we're back at Sports Talk, South Carolina Radio Network, underway in Columbia, USC 4-2 over Texas A&M, underway in Chapel Dump, Syracuse on top of the Bluebellies, 7-4. Bryce Johnson just playing great basketball, the Edisto standout, playing terrific basketball for the Tar Heels. Syracuse coming off a bad loss at home. They've been kind of struggling a little bit this year, and coming off, of course, they lost at Clemson. And coming off a loss at home on Saturday to who beat them? God, it's not coming to me. I'll tell you in a second. They lost to somebody at home.
No, it wasn't Pittsburgh.
No, Pittsburgh lost at home.
They lost. No, it wasn't Louisville.
They lost to all right, now I got to look it up since I asked the question.
Well, while you're looking it up, I mean, there were chances for 2 signature wins yesterday by ACC teams, and they just couldn't close the deal.
Miami,
yeah,
which is no surprise. Remember, I said look out for Miami.
The most important one was Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech had Virginia, but they could not score in the last 4 minutes. And Virginia is just one of those teams, Corn, that a lot of their games are close, but they know how to close the deal down the stretch. They don't panic. And, of course, another team like that is Notre Dame, coached by the former Mike Krzyzewski assistant, Mike Bray, who's been there he's been at Notre Dame almost 20 years now. And they don't panic, and they fell down by 19 in Raleigh and came back and won that game in overtime last night.
All right, Tiger Bryan in Lancaster's been holding. Let's jump to him next here on Sports Talk. Hello, Tiger Bryan.
How y'all guys doing tonight, man?
Man, we're doing great. Good to have you with us. Hope you're doing well.
Me too. I am. Hey, I got one thing. I got a couple things to say to you. For you, me and you. Hey, I'm not a crying Cowboy fan. I'm a Cowboy fan. You're a Green Bay. You're a Green Bay Packer fan. We both in the same situation. We're gonna be sitting on the couch watching the Super Bowl.
Well, this is true. This is true. One of us will be more sober than the other, I think. But
I got other things to say.
We did go one game farther than the Cowboys did. Yes. What else is on your mind?
Y'all did with a man with a bad leg, just like Clemson beat South Carolina with a man with a bad leg last year. And the old ball coach down in Columbia, he better not fight off more he can chew now. He ain't gonna circle that thing. He better circle that first game. You play one game at a time. Ain't that way we play?
That's what you're supposed to do. Every game is an individual season.
But when you talk to the fans, you got to rile them up a little bit.
He said it. Let me see if I can recall what he said. Remember, I'm telling you, circle November 28th. I can't do a good Spurrier. Circle November 28th. We're going to kick their ass. No, he didn't say that. No. He said, you're
going to be proud.
We're going to make you proud. That'll be a day we'll make you proud of our program again. So he's just trying to keep it alive here. It's, after recruiting season, it becomes talking season. So he's just trying to keep talking season going at the back end of recruiting season. 800-956-7266. What do you think? Back in a moment. Okay, we've cleared the lines, 800-956-7266. Off to a great start on the calls this week. Jerome and Tiger Bryant. How can you top that to start a week with back-to-back Jerome and TB phone calls? 800-956-7266 is how you can reach us. We'll hear from USC basketball coach Frank Martin coming up. K-Mac will join us again from the CLA with an update on USC Texas A&M women. The Aggies are up 11-10 with just over 13 minutes to play in the half. North Carolina, Syracuse, Orange up 11-9, 13 minutes ago in that game. Other basketball tonight of interest, High Point at Presbyterian just getting underway over in Clinton, and Hampton at South Carolina State. That game will tip off in about 15 minutes in Orangeburg. 800-956-7266. Poll question on our website. New poll question up for you. Who wins the Super Bowl? Pretty creative, I'd say, to come up with that question this week. Who wins the Super Bowl? I'm taking, for personal reasons, I'm taking New England. Okay, put everything else aside. Don't care about the air in the ball and all that kind of crap. I hate Seattle. I hate them with a passion. I hope it rains there every day for the next 25 years. I hope it rains and pours and just drowns everybody. So I hate Seattle. And I'm not crazy about New England because that's the home of the Red Sox, but it is the home of the Celtics. Thus, I will pick New England to beat Seattle. Right now, voters are choosing the Seahawks 59% to 40%. What say you, Pro?
I'm saying Seattle myself. However, I will say this. I think this Inflategate actually mentally plays into the hands of New England. They're going to come out try to prove.
Actually, it's Deflategate. Deflategate.
Inflate, deflate, because when they found that they were deflated, they inflated them at halftime. But I think it's a bunch of hoot about nothing, to tell you the truth. But,
well, sure it is. I mean, it had no impact on the game. But anyway, don't want to get into that. State Man, you got a pick on the Super Bowl? You got a winner in your head?
The first thing I would look at is the track that they're playing on, since they're playing in a dome. And that's my deciding factor is there's more athletes with Seattle, pure athletes. They're going to play better on that track. And lastly, they played a horrible game last time out against Green Bay. Conversely,
well, because they were forced to play a horrible game.
I think they played the best team in the league. I think Green Bay was the better team. But they admittedly played horrible football too. They didn't make much of a game until the late comeback. So they can only go up. They're not going to play that bad. And the Patriots played so well last week. I think the roles were reversed a little bit. But the track matters. They got better athletes.
Well, the interesting thing about it is that tells you how good Seattle is. How many teams could survive against Green Bay, turning the football over 4 times and live to still win the football game?
When you're playing against a bunch of stupid people like the Packers were the last 6 minutes of that game, from the head coach all the way down, you can survive. You just make one play. Make one play. Am I over that game yet, you're wondering? No.
You never get over it.
I'm not
just
over.
Like Don Chandler's field goal was missed.
No, it
wasn't.
That thing was perfect. That thing split the uprights. I watched it on my black and white 14-inch Dumont television in 1965. Right down the middle.
You need to check your horizontal hold on that old TV.
Back to the phones we go. And it's Ronnie in North Augusta. Ronnie, how are you?
Good. How you and Pro doing tonight?
Hey, did you make any bombs today?
And not today, I might have to hurl one up at Dabo, though, if we don't win on the 28th. So Spurrier to put me back in it. Again, I have had quite a few phone calls since he made his little comment. The crowd I run with is kind of tough, Bill. They told me they don't want to hear what Spurrier's got to say, what I got to say. When I whip them, I can say something again.
Right. You do have to kind of bite your tongue a little bit right now, don't you?
Well, you can always say 5-1.
Hey, I hope I'm not congratulating you for nothing, but I'm pretty sure I can pick your voice out anytime. Thank God we've got somebody that'll ask a question when they're talking to Spurrier or any of these coaches. Everybody else tosses out the softball. You always try to get to the things that people really want to know. That was you would ask him about the coach, about hope, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then when you don't get your answer, maybe you're the only one that's good enough out of that crowd to come back with a different way of rephrasing your question, because when you don't get your answer, you usually fire back pretty quick and change it up. You don't always get what you want, Bill, but I'll give you credit. At least you go after when you don't give up easily.
Well, that's
But
our
I go
job. That's our job here, is to be the conduit between you and people like you and the people that we cover. And there's no reason not to ask them legitimate questions. I mean, I'm not going to ask. Well, sometimes I ask off the wall questions, but I mean, legitimate questions have to be asked, and that's been one of the main topics of USC football for several weeks.
In fact, I thought you were going to ask him, y'all, when I come to spring practice, are we going to see some more hitting?
Yeah,
than we usually see.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised if they do more hitting in the spring. You heard Spurrier say, he said it repeatedly, there's going to be changes. So, you have to take a look at yourself, criticize yourself internally, critique yourself, and when you're 7-6, figure out why you lost those close games. And I'm sure that's what he's doing. If not, he's not doing his job. But I'm sure he and the staff are doing that, and they'll make some changes and see if it works better for him next time around.
Hey, Phil, I was going to tell you, for all of Vital's craziness, which I love Vital. I've always loved listening to him. But I tell you what, when he knows basketball, the man just told it like it was Saturday over and over and over. He said, you can have rebounders, you can play defense. He said, if you can't go out and recruit guys that can shoot the basketball, you're never going to have a winning basketball team. And that describes South Carolina over the last 2 or 3. I don't believe you could travel across America and stop in every backyard of the United States of America and find 5 guys that couldn't shoot the basketball better than what we have.
Which makes you wonder why they drop the ball with the kid right in their backyard who can flat shoot the lights out.
I'm telling you,
and we're talking about Tevin Mack.
If people can score, you just can't win.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to tell you this. A lot of that is mental. Because if you notice the early games they played, they will bottom out a bunch of threes. I'm telling you, this team can be good, but again, I always look at what everybody looks at the physical point. I'm looking at the mental point. Those guys were flinging up shots, and you could tell by their body language, I hope it goes in. I hope it goes in. When you see a guy go up with confidence, this one is going down. What is that? I think it was Larry Bird. Shoot when you're hot. Shoot till you get hot. I mean, and every shot you go up with, you shoot it with confidence.
Thanks for your phone call, Ronnie. Keep making those bombs. We may need some. 800-956.
I think they're cleaning up the place now. They're not making the stuff.
800-956-7. I hope we don't have to use any, but always nice to have some at your fingertips. 800-956-7266 is our phone number. Lines are now open. Email talkback@sportstalksc.com. And in fact, in the email, let's see here. Michael writes in about USC's shooting. According to ESPN, South Carolina is ranked 201st in the nation in field goal percentage, 308th in three-point percentage. I know Kentucky plays great defense, but please give me a break. Gamecocks, the team, shot 22.6%, the second lowest percentage in a game this year by a major college program, according to ESPN. This is the same problem the Gamecocks experience nearly every year. It's hard to win games if you can't shoot. Sindarius Thornwell, for example, supposedly our best recruit in some time, shooting about 35%. Well, I will say on Sindarius's part, he's dealing with tendonitis in both knees, and you can tell he's not elevating on his jumper. It looks to me like he's shooting the ball on the way up. His timing doesn't look good right now. He doesn't look like a smooth jump shooter to me. Maybe the knees are bothering him, and he's not able to do what he wants to do. But you're right. And I don't buy Frank Martin's reasoning behind this since the end of December, the start of January. He's blaming this on the fact that the players are having to go to class, and thus they don't have enough time on their own to go work on their shooting.
That's not what he said. He said you find time.
He
said you find time.
Every team in the country is going to class.
But that's what he said. He said you find time. He said you find time. Well, that's what he said.
These are basketball players. You don't think they're going out and shooting on their own and finding time?
Some of them don't.
Well, then they're not bought into the program then.
There you go.
And that's a problem with you. Then you recruited the wrong guys.
No, you didn't. You just have an attitude adjustment. All you do is an attitude adjustment. That's all you got to do.
All right, USC, Texas A&M tied at 20 with 9 minutes to go in the first half. USC shooting 53%. Aggies at 47%. Aggies 3 of 3 from the line. USC 2 of 4. And USC being out-rebounded 10-7 thus far. And leading USC with 8 points is Tiffany Mitchell at this point. Welsh has 4. Asia Wilson has 5 for USC. So it's a good one over at the Colonial Life Arena. We'll get a report for the halftime. Meantime, Syracuse up on top of the Tar Heels. What was that, a 4-point spread when they went to the break?
5-point game. Trevor Cooney has had his shooting problems, which has hurt Syracuse. He's 3 for 7 from 3-point range for the Orange.
When I glance up at this USC game a few times, I'm seeing A&M scoring pretty much at will inside. Are we seeing a breakdown in USC's interior defense?
Well, not really. What has happened is they got quick guards, and that's what they do. They go into your kitchen. Now, they've had some thrown out of there. They've had a block, but they're telling them, you have to block them all. And then South Carolina, again, I think this is the third call they've had for a moving screen.
Well, I don't know if it's going to end tonight. I mean, the idea of running the table in the SEC in women's basketball is pretty much a stretch. You'd love to see it. You're South Carolina, you're 19-0. It's going great. Then again, in basketball, there's nothing wrong with a loss. If it comes at the right time, a loss in January, February, you don't want one in March, but a loss in January and February is not going to be the end of the world. Sometimes it takes that pressure off of you. If you're that team that's undefeated and ranked number 1, takes a little bit of that pressure off.
I'm looking more like John Calipari. My team is on the edge, and I want to see what they do when they're on the edge. So, if you're going to have some adversity, have it, and let's see what you do if you come out of it. And, and see what South Carolina does. They're down by 4, and they go right in there and get a basket. That's what you do.
All right, 800-956-7266 is our number if you want to jump on board quickly. Frank Martin coming up after the break. We'll hear from the USC basketball coach from earlier today, kind of recapping the loss to Kentucky, where, obviously disappointed in a loss, but he thought his team played hard. He thought his team played physically, held Kentucky down in scoring, as few teams have done this year. Now, South Carolina couldn't score, couldn't make a shot, but defensively they never caved in, and they didn't give Kentucky a whole lot of freedom out there. Kentucky just has shooters. I mean, even when you play good defense, that Booker kid is – I don't know how long he's going to be at Kentucky. He might be a one and done. He can flat out shoot from anywhere. But it helps to be able to throw inside and go outside and get a look. That's what happens because they're so big. If they play screen and roll or go inside with the ball and they swing it back outside, you're going to get a look.
Now, if I've got guys a little bit undersized and under the basket, I may be liable to aim the basketball. How much more comfortable am I if I got Kareem and Wilt standing under the basket? Well, if I miss, what the heck? They'll get the rebound and put it in. That's how Kentucky shoots because they don't have to worry about a miss. Sometimes this is their best offense.
right, USC women up 28-24. 5 minutes to play in the first half at the Colonial Life Arena. USC men coming off a loss to Kentucky. They're in the basement of the SEC at this point. They're going to hit the road on Wednesday night to go to LSU. Very good LSU team, 15-4, 9-1 at home, 4-2 in the SEC, coming off a road win themselves this past weekend. So another tough task ahead for the Gamecocks as they try to turn things around at 10-8 overall, 1-5 in the SEC. Earlier today, Frank Martin sat down with the media for his Monday weekly get-together, and he talked about the effort against Kentucky. Didn't like the outcome, but he liked the effort.
We extremely proud of our guys. We have to bottle up the aggression, the unity, the disciplines that we played with against Kentucky, and continue to build on that. And it's no different than the same aggression, discipline, Oklahoma State or whoever else we played during that winning streak. But since we were playing like that consistently, we played with more confidence, and we hadn't practiced or played that way for 3 weeks. So we've then you get beat. And when you get beat, then all of a sudden guys kind of lose a little confidence in themselves. And it's our jobs now to fight the refined, or I don't know if that's even a word, but to rediscover that confidence that we had a month ago.
You guys are coming off playing a team with a lot of height. Do you think that maybe helps you out when going to play guys like Martin and Mickey that LSU has in the post?
Yeah, it's the problem with LSU is we played their height before, and going into the Kentucky game, we played other teams that had height, didn't have 4 6'11" guys or whatever they got, but we played teams that had big front lines, and we took some good shots. We just didn't make them, and it wasn't really the height that bothered us. Just I think is we're not playing with the same confidence individually offensively that we played with earlier, and that comes from the things that I was speaking about. The problem with LSU, as I started watching film on them last night, is that their guard play early in the year was brand new. Well, those guards now have been through it for 3 months and played real good competition. Now they're engaged with SEC caliber basketball, and when you couple those frontline guys that they have with those guards they have, that both of them have extended Division I successful experience before they went there, and now those guys are engaged to what they do, and then you got a young guy like Tim Quarterman that's taking that next step as a player, and that's why they're good. That's why they're playing as well as they are.
You talk about rediscovering yourself and focusing on yourself as you go into LSU, but you do have LSU next. How hard is it during the grind of the season to kind of find that fine line between focusing on yourself and worrying about the next opponent?
Picture perfect world, you don't want it that way, but it's what this team needs, and you can never overcome the outside opponent if you're not comfortable with the inside unity. So it's a lot more important for us to be on the same page, engaged, confident, clear mentally as to what's needed. And that's what we've been trying to focus in on since before the Kentucky game. And, and for all that to happen, it takes the players taking ownership, plain and simple. It's coaches can bark and preach and educate and talk and whatever till they're blue in the face. Until players don't take ownership, it's not going to change. It's no different than a person who's got a gambling problem or an eating problem or a drug problem. Until that person doesn't take ownership of what they're not doing right, there's no help that they're ever going to embrace. I think we're at a place right now where we finally embraced that we needed to righten the ship internally and not be so consumed with the next opponent.
Frank, shooting seems like something that can kind of come and go on its own sometimes. And when you guys work on that, I mean, how much of it is confidence? How much of it is repetition? How much of it is mechanics? I mean, what do you work on when you work on shooting?
Yeah, no, that's not. Here's the deal. That's why we spend as much time on defense and making the effort plays and all the stuff that we talk about all the time, because those are things that you control. You're going to have games like we did against Kentucky where you take shots that you're trying to get and doesn't go in. What you can't have are guys that are not pulling the trigger, kind of passing up some good shots because they don't have the confidence that they need to have to let it go. And we kind of still have a little bit of that. Well, how do you get the confidence and the other stuff? Well, yeah, you got to spend time in the gym, got to shoot balls. You know, you can't go and please don't use these stats as if I'm trying to pick on a player. I'm just saying numbers to say numbers. You can't go 2 for your last 24 and not put in extra work and think that the habit is going to change. You know, it's like everything else. When you're doing things and you're not having success, if you continue to do them, don't expect success. You know, it's not going to change. And since school started, those are kind of some of the behaviors that we were falling victim to. So now guys aren't shooting the ball with the same level of looseness, for lack of better words, that we were in December when we were in their mandatory shooting ball after ball after ball. But what has been bothering me for 3 weeks is not that we haven't made shots, is that we had lost focus on who we need to be. And we kind of, you know, went back and grabbed that in our preparation for Kentucky and played that way against Kentucky. Now we have to continue to do things you control. I mean, NBA is full of great players. Any player in the NBA would take anyone that played in our game against Kentucky and beat anyone in a one-on-one 15-0. You pick the player in the NBA. Well, there's teams in the NBA that have bad shooting weeks, nights. Happens. But you got to have a system in place, a culture in place that you control. You got to make sure that you can do those things night in and night out. We got away from that. That's what we got to fix.
All right, Frank Martin talking about his team's shooting woes. I don't know if I buy all that. I just don't. I mean, to say that because they've gone back to class and now guys aren't getting enough extra shooting time or not taking it on their own time to go shoot is the reason why they're not shooting well.
No, that's one of the reasons. He didn't say all of the reasons.
Well, that's what he's been pointing out.
No,
this is going back several press conferences.
You sound like a kid in a sandbox trying to start an argument.
No, I'm reacting to his explanation, which I'm not totally buying. I don't understand how a team that was so good offensively in December, so crisp, moving the ball, getting good looks, making shots, then all of a sudden, simply because league play begins, it just turns off like a spigot. You just turn it off.
Our basketball expert on Friday, when I asked the question, told you, now you're in conference play. People get the book on you. They look at film on you, and then they take away things you like to do.
But this has been going on since the start of conference play.
But what I'm saying,
it's not like they're the second time around through the schedule here. They're still playing teams for the first time.
Once they took those away from you, these players, who are still mostly sophomores, didn't have mentally a counter. So now what? They get down on themselves. They're playing bad. Now they've gotten slapped in the face. Now it's just like my dad said, you know, I worried about your driving before that guy caused that wreck. Now that you've been in a wreck, now I know you're going to pay attention to everybody, not only your driving, but everybody else's. So now they've hit a wreck, and now let's see how they come out of it.
Well, maybe they should watch the USC women shoot. 59% in the
not
first
at the
half.
foul line.
Foul line 3 of 6. Don't need it. They're up 35-29 with 90 seconds to go in the half. And it's Asia Wilson leading the way with 9. And North Carolina, Syracuse, they're tied late in the half in Chapel Hill. strong finish to the half has put the USC women up by 8 on Texas A&M, 39-31. Let's go out to the Colonial Life Arena. Kevin McCrary is there. Watch it all unfold in the first half. Good ball game, K-Mac. USC women hitting their shots, 56% overall. After a bit of a tight game for most of the first half, the USC women kind of stretched things out in the last 5 minutes or so.
Yeah, I mean, it's neat to kind of see a couple of teams shooting at or over 50% in this one for them. And you're right, the Gamecocks really came out strong in that latter part of the second half, built a working margin up 10 there for a stretch. Texas A&M hit a shot right as the buzzer sounded, or right before the buzzer, to keep it as an 8-point game, but an impressive performance. Texas A&M's a good team. They're a top 10 team for a reason. They've knocked down a lot of shots as well, and for the better part of the first half, they were right around until the Gamecocks had a late surge. They just keep coming at you, so they have great starters, but then they bring some really good players off the bench. When you talk about Asia Wilson and Coates off the bench, that's a pretty big duo to come in there. They just keep coming at you with talent, big talent at that.
It looks like South Carolina's best offense came back when they made that run as the defense, cutting off Texas A&M guards that had been penetrating early with the big people standing in the lane, and then you just get stripped at the top of the circle and turn it into a fast break.
Yeah, they have. They forced some turnovers and got the points off the turnovers. And you're right, Pro. They are doing a good job of forcing Texas A&M to shoot outside of the paint. Now, to the Aggies' credit, they're knocking down some of those shots. They've hit some mid-range shots. They knocked down a three-pointer in the corner to make sure that the game didn't get out of hand. And the crowd, a very solid crowd, as we've come to expect here with the women. Lower bowl completely full, and upper deck not as full, but certainly a big crowd here. And I guess more importantly, a lively crowd, very engaged in this one.
All right, looking at the scoring, we mentioned USC shooting 56%, but balanced scoring. Wilson has 11, Welch has 9, Mitchell has 8, so they've kind of spread that around a little bit. USC has forced 9 turnovers, only 4 committed themselves. They lead in rebounding, 17-14. Free throws, not many taken, K-Mac, but again, the free throw shooting percentage for USC continues to be very average, 3 out of 6.
Yeah, they make about half of them, and if there's any albatross for this team, I think that could be it. When you get into the later part of March and you're playing against another top 5 team, it could come down to who's going to knock down those free throws. So that's something that they work on. I mean, everybody talks about free throws, and people get frustrated, especially fans, when it comes to poor free throw shooting. We'll see if that ends up being a storyline in this game against a top 10 opponent, or later when they play this tough stretch of games here in the next few weeks. UConn coming up in stores next week.
All right, K-Mac, thanks. And folks can see your post-game coverage on our website, sportstalksc.com, a little bit later on tonight. So the USC women, undefeated, ranked number 1 in the country, been there for a long time. They're up 39-31 over Texas A&M. A couple of things that I wanted to mention here very quickly. A couple of things have happened over the last few minutes that I wanted to pass along. And give me just a second here, and I will pass it along. You got anything? Got any updates on those other games while I'm looking this up?
Well, I was about to tell you about free throw shooting. Is interesting because for years, one of the problems that Ole Miss had was free throw shooting. I mean, every year it looks like they'd lose a game because of free throw shooting. And now that's the Ole Miss team, maybe some changes, guard or whatever. Now they're leading the nation in free throw shooting. It's incredible how you can make a turnaround as far as shooting is concerned. We got to check. I think there's
which makes South Carolina's situation even more perplexing because they're a very good free throw shooting team.
Right?
Yeah, very good free throw shooting team. Much improved at the foul line. I found what I was looking for. Rock Hill Herald has some information on a couple of commitments from Lancaster. Kicker Shea Rogers is going to sign with Newberry, as well as his teammate, offensive lineman Tevin Watts. And congratulations to Dutch Fork place kicker Tyler Bass. He's been named the winner of the Chris Saylor Award as the best high school place kicker in the country for 2014. And verbalcommits.com reports that a guard, Jovante Spivey from South Georgia State College, has committed to the Citadel. Unfortunately, since Chuck Grizzell was on our program when they were playing well, they haven't won a game since. They need to break the Sports Talk hex and turn that baby around.
They need to find some extra time after class and after marching on the square to shoot some free throws.
Syracuse up 5 on the Tar Heels at the break. All right, the Braves have reportedly signed veteran catcher John Buck to a minor league contract. That's according to MLB.com. Veteran catcher John Buck expected to start the season at AAA Gwinnett, but he gives the Braves depth in case of injuries or if Christian Bethancourt struggles at the big league level. And, of course, the Braves also have A.J. Pierzynski under contract. Buck is 34 years old, has played 11 seasons in the majors. Okay, so the Braves continue to build that juggernaut at the corner of I-85, and no, it'll be moving eventually to the corner of 285 and 75.
Near the Cumberland Mall area is where they move it.
I was talking to a friend of mine who lives out in Marietta, and he said it's going to be, and of course everybody can be a negative nanny or Nancy or whatever you want to be, ninny. He says it's going to be awful. Going to be awful with the traffic out there.
Oh, you mean more awful than it already is?
Awful, and you're just going to add to the awfulness.
Yeah, really.
I mean, anybody who's driven on 285 between 4 o'clock and 7 o'clock on any given workday in Atlanta, especially where 75 intersects, and now you're going to build what, about a 35,000, 40,000 seat stadium, and you're going to have people going home, people going around Atlanta, and now people making a beeline to the stadium all at the same time. I see no other way than it to be catastrophic from a traffic standpoint.
But it'll be fun. If you don't want to go to the game,
it's going to be like L.A. Yeah, it's like in L.A. You can't get to the Dodger Stadium unless so many people arrive in the fourth inning, I guess.
Oh, yeah, it already is. I mean, that's why if you know Atlanta, it's interesting. You take the city streets and you go right through because everybody else is going on the interstates, and if you can traverse your way through that. I'm learning that, but I don't go there often enough to know, like my niece and nephew know Atlanta, because they can just sneak through back roads and know where they're going. I can't do that.
Just get on Peachtree or Ponce de Leon. Pretty much get you anywhere you need to go in Atlanta. All right, coming up, what do you have score-wise? You got some other scores?
Yeah. Well, we were looking at this game. Syracuse leading North Carolina at halftime, 40-35. Syracuse desperately needs a win. And in the Big South, Presbyterian trailing High Point at home, 31-28 at the half.
All right, tomorrow night, I'll be in Myrtle Beach. I'll be on the show for the first hour or so. It's the annual trek to the Myrtle Beach Sports Club for a little recruiting gathering with the folks down there, and looking forward to being there for that. And we'll be on the air tomorrow night. Corey Helms is slated to be with us tomorrow night at 6:30 to talk about his commitment to South Carolina. Significant one for South Carolina because this is a player who has proven himself in the ACC for 2 years and was a freshman All-American as a center, so he will certainly help fill a void at South Carolina when he becomes eligible to play. We'll have that for you. Brad Brownell talking about going up to NC State. We'll have that for you too, and a whole bunch more. Thanks for being with us. Thank you, Pro. Thank you, Steak Man. Thanks to K-Mac. And we'll see you tomorrow night here on Sports Talk.